and you know the sun is shining, but it's not quite bright enough. And that's because it's not like a cloudy day because it's not diffuse light. So it's bright, and yet it's not quite bright enough because so much of the sun has disappeared. And yet it is still significantly bright because even though there's only about, I'd say about a sixth of the sun left, it still looks like a bright, sunny day. So I've got my 7-year-old daughter here, and she's got a Cheshire Cat smile on her face too. This is her first eclipse, so she's very excited.
And tell me a little more about just getting a view, because it's a very narrow belt, isn't it, as you go across these 14 American states where you get this moment of totality.
It is. And I was working down in California, but over the last week we've been working our way further and further north to get into the zone of totality. Now, I think at totality we will get about 1 minute and 52 seconds. And I think the maximum totality you can get is 2 minutes and 4 seconds. So we're pretty close to that as well, epicenter. But it's funny because many people will be seeing it partial, but seeing it in totality is where the real magic is. Because it is a total cosmic coincidence when the moon has the same similar size in the sky as the sun. And so as the moon goes across, it will totally obscure the sun, and you'll see the amazing prominences around the sun. And I've seen it once before, and it blew my socks off, and so I just can't wait to do it again.
We're just looking at pictures that have come from NASA, where you saw the golden sun just moments before it flicked back to the live shot now in Oregon. But there are so many different telescopes, people just focused on this event. How many people have actually gathered, Maggie, around with you?
Yeah, so Albany is quite a small town, and I think we've probably swelled the numbers by 3 times. And I'm standing in the field with probably about 1,000 people. But what I love is the range of equipment. We've got some cameras, we've got telescopes, we've got solar scopes, and lots of solar eclipse glasses. So everybody's just sort of looking up and admiring the view and just waiting for that moment of totality. The tension is building here. But we're very lucky. We have clear skies. So, yes, I think we're in the ideal spot.
Well, Maggie, perhaps we'll talk again through the course of the programme. Thank you so much for joining us. And right throughout the next half an hour, as we see these wonderful pictures come in, I'm joined by Dr. Alyssa Drake from the Royal Astronomical Society. So she's going to enjoy the pictures with me and explain a little of the science going on and what they hope to learn from it. But we're going to go straight to Kentucky now, where Neda Tawfik is waiting to talk to us, and she's there with a group of people waiting for her, for it to embrace them. Neda, what is it like?
Well, we actually had an announcement. We've all been looking up in the sky because we've had first contact. So you could see a little bit of a sliver of the moon shadow in the sun. And just that alone has gotten everyone here really excited. Everyone throwing on their eclipse glasses. And the weather is absolutely perfect. More than anyone could have asked for this. And actually with me is Shane and Ginny Simmons. They've traveled here all the way from Texas. How excited are you with just even that little pre-shot?
I'm really excited. We drove 10 hours to get here. So we're really excited to see it. And it started.
Yes. And it was so interesting what you talked about, you know, just kind of how mind-boggling it is to imagine everything that had to work out for this. Talk to me about how that's been one of the more surprising things to you.
I think the fact that we're in the perfect spot in the universe for the eclipse, and that the moon is 1/400th the size of the sun, but it's also 400 times more distance from the sun, so that the sizes work out perfectly, so that we have a perfect eclipse where the moon just covers the sun.
Yeah, NASA calls it a cosmic coincidence.
Yes.
Yes. And what have you been doing so far throughout the day ahead of the eclipse?
Driving up here, anticipating traffic, trying to get here early, stay cool, and just make sure I have our glasses on and watching the eclipse and having fun.
Have you visiting with people, getting to know different people around that's here? That's a lot of fun.
And have you ever experienced an event like this before? I mean, even before the big moment happens?
I have been to 2 Super Bowls, and this is a lot better.
This is a lot better than...
It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. I can always go to another Super Bowl, but this is once in a lifetime.
So I'm assuming you guys have never experienced total solar eclipses before?
Never.
No, never.
What have you been told to expect? What are you anticipating?
Well, I think everybody has seen a partial eclipse, but that's nothing compared to the total eclipse. I've read all the things in the books and magazines and internet, and I'm extremely excited to see the shadow and the darkness that's going to cover us.
Yeah, I mean, it's sweltering right now, and they say that the temperatures are just going to drop. It'll come as a bit of a relief. But, I mean, this is also a perfect location almost to view that. Isn't that one of the reasons you chose this farm in Hopkinsville?
We drove all the way to Hopkinsville because it is the point of greatest eclipse. where the moon actually covers the greatest portion of the sun anywhere in the world today.
Yes, I agree. It's amazing.
So if you're going to view it, you might as well view it from the best seat.
Right,
Yes.
right.
And if you're not here, sorry, you should have been here. It's only 1 in 100 years, so it's wonderful. Yeah.
And what about kind of the community around? You said this has been a great chance for people to actually get to know each other, sit back, take a break from their daily routine. What's that been like?
And there's people from all over the country, from Wisconsin and down south and up north, headed to one spot. Met a lot of people here, a lot of festivals going on in nearby Hopkinsville. Just a lot of fun. Everybody's celebrating.
Friendly people, very kind, sweet, and just getting to know your neighbor. So it's been nice.
And for you, is this going to be a religious experience, an experience of, of experiencing Mother Nature's? What is this for you? Why was it so important to travel such a long way to make sure you had the best view of this eclipse?
Well, it's our anniversary.
It's also our anniversary, and we thought we would come here and experience the eclipse. Not really a religious thing to me, as far as the sun, but I think it's just the perfect spot in the universe today to be. It's that once-in-a-lifetime event.
You said for you, this is like a religious...
Oh, yes. I mean, our Creator, Lord Savior, Jesus Christ, and just to experience it and see what's out there and what's above us. And...
So this is spiritual for you as well?
Yes, yes. And
it's interesting. I spoke to one person who saw a total solar eclipse. He said he wasn't religious, but he compared a partial one to going to church, but a total solar eclipse to seeing God. And after this, do you guys think that you will be, you're in Texas, the next total solar eclipse will be in Texas in 2024. Are you already planning for that?
7 years from 7 years in April, so.
All right, well, why don't we just take a moment? Why don't you put on your eclipse glasses? Why don't we take a moment to see what the progression is like now? How is it looking?
It's a small sliver. It's probably 5% up on the top right corner, but it's a slow progression, but it looks interesting. I'm still waiting for it to get to totality, so that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and all around, really, you can see on this small family farm, everyone is just looking up into the sky occasionally because that's where the big show is. And NASA, for those people who aren't going to be here because this is the best spot, they're actually going to be live streaming the event to around the world. Do you guys have a lot of family who are jealous that you're here?
Oh, yes.
People wanted us to live stream on Facebook and things like that, and we said, well, they should have drove up here like we did.
So you're not
going
going
to miss the moment.
No.
So you're not going to be holding the cameras. You're just going to enjoy it.
2.5 minutes. It's all ours. It's our time.
That's right, because this is going to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll have totality here, one of the longest in the country, and you're not going to miss that.
Right. No photos, just enjoying.
Great. Well, thank you. That was the Simmons from Texas coming all the way here, Matthew, and everyone is just overjoyed and excited.
Neda, thanks very much. To my guest in a moment, we're going to show you the live pictures coming to us from Oregon, first of all, because looking at the clock, and you can see from the sun, we're not that far away. 1816 is the first moment in the United States we'll get totality. I read a wonderful tweet last night saying tons of pressure on the moon to deliver today. Millions are watching. Well, watching is Alyssa Drake here with me. Thanks for being with me. As I say, we're not that far away. I'm going to ask the dunder-headed question, first of all, because here you have the sun, 400 times the size of the moon. So how does the moon blot it out?
Well, this is one of the things that we call a fantastic celestial coincidence. The fact that the moon is so much closer to us than the sun means that when the moon passes in front of the sun, it pretty much blocks out exactly the face of the sun. And that's a pretty spectacular sight to see for everybody.
And historically, people have been always fascinated by this, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, since the beginning of time, people have been able to observe eclipses. Before we had the technology to study them, or before we realized exactly how the universe worked, it was a pretty frightening experience for a lot of people, especially if you only saw one in your lifetime. You weren't expecting it to happen.
Yes, they would have had no idea what it actually was. Suddenly it goes dark, and animals too, utterly confused by it.
Yes, indeed. I think, yes, so even now, animals get a little bit upset sometimes during the total solar eclipse. So they tend to think that, that nighttime has arrived all of a sudden. So they might get a little bit excited, as though it's twilight, and then go completely quiet at the point of the total
And you've seen
eclipse.
one yourself, haven't you, a total eclipse?
I was lucky enough to see the almost total eclipse back in 1999 from the UK. It was a little bit cloudy on that day, but it was still a pretty spectacular sight.
Before I ask you the next question, as we continue to look at these live pictures, bit by bit you see the sun disappearing, and this is Oregon, and it's worth saying that over the course next little while this scene is replicated across 14 states before it gets to South Carolina as it goes coast to coast. It's a really narrow belt, as we were hearing earlier from my earlier guest, that you have to be in this very small width, this band of 70 miles across the United States to see this moment of totality. For the rest of the people in the United States, they will just see a shadow. So state by state, that will arc its way across America. Alyssa, what are scientists hoping to learn from something like this?
So the fantastic thing about the total solar eclipse is that for scientists based in the US, this gives them a fantastic chance to study the outer layers of the sun's atmosphere and the corona. And this is pretty much the only time that you can do that in such detail. So that really is an unprecedented experience for everyone.
And what are the questions that scientists still are looking for answers about? Because this is not in isolation, is it? Because all of this is linked, is relevant to us here on Earth, and various questions like weather, for example.
Exactly. So it's actually studying the sun's corona which is going to help us to understand solar winds and the resultant space weather, which is when the solar wind comes and hits the Earth's atmosphere, and all kinds of exciting things happen to our technology here on Earth. So it does have a very tangible effect.
Now, I'm going to switch to these pictures, and I heard you take a little inset of breath as you saw, because it's absolutely glorious, isn't it? These are pictures taken from an aircraft. I was saying in the introduction, they anticipate this is going to be the most photographed, the most watched, the most documented of total solar eclipses, beating the one that was in India and China almost a decade or so ago, and we're less than a minute, and you can see that because it takes 10 minutes or so, people who've witnessed one firsthand, it goes darker, and you can see as I am speaking it gets dimmer and dimmer. Alyssa, you explain, you're the scientist, you're the expert. And this one lasts for what, just over a minute, the moment of totality?
Yes, I think depending on exactly where you are watching from, it's going to be dark for a slightly different amount of time, but you're looking at somewhere between 1 and 2 and a bit minutes. And look at that, absolutely spectacular. This is really fantastic viewing for people in the USA. Wow.
And there are, wow, look at that. That is the moment, you were talking about the corona earlier, and you get these final few seconds, don't you, where you get just the edge. It's almost like a diamond ring.
Yeah, yeah. This is absolutely amazing. And so, yeah.
Now, this is from NASA's plane. I was also reading a little earlier that the astronauts on the International Space Station will end up seeing this.
Need to worry too much.
It's worth saying, but probably a little late, that it's risky. Sky gazing, star watching, looking at all
very
of this.
important.
What is the best way for people to be watching all of this?
So never ever look directly at the sun, and if you're lucky enough to be observing this, the best thing to do really is to try and project the image through a pinhole camera, or to use your special solar eclipse glasses which have been handed out. Oh, there it is. Lovely.
Well, those are the first pictures of the ground, hence the wobble that you were just seeing. These are the pictures from the ground of this total solar eclipse. Alyssa, do stay with me and continue to look at these pictures and sit there in awe. But Bob Baer is waiting to speak to us in Illinois, and he, of course, is an expert who has seen this, I think, several times over before. He's chair of the Eclipse Committee at Southern Illinois University. Bob, welcome to the programme. I gather Carbondale, which is quite close to... Now, I interrupt myself because that is what they describe as the diamond ring moment, as it absolutely blasts around. Bob, I'll come to you in a second, but Alyssa, you wanted to get in there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got very excited about the diamond ring. It's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. Is that coming from Oregon now?
It is,
Right.
and these are pictures from on the ground that the telescopes that are pointed in that direction are giving us. Bob Baer, apologies, I interrupted you. Carbondale, it's been called the Eclipse Crossroads of America. Tell me a little more about why.
Why is this the Eclipse Crossroads of America? We are going to see two eclipses, the one today and one April 8th, 2024. And the intersection of the center lines of the path of totality is actually just 6 miles south of where I'm sitting today at Saluki Stadium in Carbondale, Illinois.
So you get two bites of the cherry, you lucky thing. I mean, you've seen this before, haven't you? Give me an idea of how people react when they see this total solar eclipse.
Well, I saw my first total solar eclipse last year in Indonesia with a group of about 50 to 100 people. And I was doing research. But once I got my research going, I was excited to see it myself. And people cheer. Some people get emotional. I think a lot of people are in shock. They don't quite understand what to think of the corona up in the sky. So seeing this here today, I want to see all these additional reactions that we're getting from SIU Carbondale.
Part of the project that you run involves scientists, students, volunteers, all banding together to track eclipses. How does that help? Does that give you extra data? How does that all work?
So yeah, the Citizen Kate experiment, I'm a co-investigator for it and Illinois State Coordinator, and we have 68 volunteer teams across the country, all taking data. We have one down on the field of the stadium right now that's doing final calibrations on their scope. And it's kind of a relay race across the country. They start in Oregon and they get totality data. They hand off to the next team. We have teams every roughly 40 miles across the country. And we look to get continuous coverage of the eclipse, coast to coast, and get those images of the inner corona, those images that we can only get from the ground during a total solar eclipse.
It's just staggering watching these pictures, and I'm sure you're seeing it as we speak just now. Do you ever get tired of seeing something like this?
I don't, but I can't see exactly what you're seeing. What I'm seeing is the crowds filling in our stadium. We just had first contact here ourselves in Carbondale, and the crowds are starting to fill in. We have a sellout here, 14,000 people to watch this. But no, I will never get tired of watching a total solar eclipse or looking at images of it.
And Bob, just give me an idea about the crowds, because it's broadly the best places to watch this are not from the main American cities. It's just dotted towns along the way across 14 states. Where you are, Carbondale, it is the longest, isn't it? 2 minutes, 38 seconds of darkness. Just give me an idea of just the amounts of people that have been coming to these little places.
Well, yeah, and here on campus, we have that 2 minutes and 38 seconds. That's the exact timing at our stadium. Just a little bit south of here, the lunar limb corrected time, which is the most accurate, is that 2 minutes and 41.6 seconds. And gosh, I don't even know if people can get down the roads to get to some of those places. We have lines outside of our stadium. Like I said, 14,000 inside the stadium, a lot more people outside, people flooding in to these areas across the country right now to see this.
Bob, briefly, because we were looking again at the diamond ring, what are you hoping to learn from all of this? One sentence.
Oh, a better understanding of the atmosphere of the sun so that we can learn more about the sun-Earth interaction.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for joining us here on our special coverage. So let's come back to Alyssa Drake. And Alyssa, just in terms of the data as we continue to watch the pictures, how long will it take scientists to actually find answers in all of the data that's coming in?
Oh, wow. I would imagine that's going to be quite a feat, actually. So there's going to be several months of really intensive data analysis, I would imagine, and it's a long process to get secure scientific results.
And I was reading just comments by you a little earlier. You were hoping that just the fascination in this, the the science involved is one of those things, a bit like music or sport, that brings people together. Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. I really do think that the total solar eclipse is a fantastic way of getting people interested in astronomy, interested in science, and it brings together people across the entire world. And so it's a wonderful way of getting people to collaborate.
And this one in the United States, where are they anticipating the next total solar eclipse?
It's going to be quite a long time until the next total solar eclipse. So I think, what are we looking at? 73 years from now in the UK, maybe something slightly sooner in the US, I'm not sure.
So this is the moment to grab the data, see the pictures. This is the moment. It is amazing as we continue to watch the pictures. And how long does it take to go from one coast to the other?
I'm not sure how many hours it's going to be. Oh, an hour and a half, I think, isn't it, to go from one to the other? Yeah, and whereas here in the UK, it's going to be about 40 minutes long for the entire.
And you mentioned here, that's interesting, because at the very tail end of this, in Europe, in England, in the northern parts of Scotland, you'll be able to get an element of this, won't you, if you look up?
If we're very, very lucky, depending on the weather, we might be able to see a small bite taken out of the sun at around about 8 o'clock tonight in the UK.
I want to go back to the moment of totality that we saw a little earlier as we see the eclipse, the moon passing in front of the sun, and then we saw that the glimpse of the sun from the other edge. And I hope to get to those pictures in the next few seconds just before we close. But just as you continue to watch these pictures, we're nearly done for time, Alyssa. Just in terms of this moment, what do you make of a moment like this?
What do I make of a moment like this? It brings to the forefront of your mind philosophy and science and a sense of community. Well,
there you summed it up. In 3 or 4 words, very slickly, Alyssa Drake, thank you so much for being with me through the course of the last half an hour as we continue to see that ring at the moment of totality as this total solar eclipse continues to arc across America. Thank you so much for watching us here on this BBC News special. Continue to watch us as we continue to chart the events there in America. Bye for now.
Hello, dry, hot weather.
Well, let's turn from Spain to the US because millions are in the process of watching a total solar eclipse. This is the moment when the moon passes directly in front of the sun and day turns into night. This is the first time in 99 years this has happened in this way in the US. There is a path of darkness crossing from the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast of the US, and as you'd imagine, thousands of people have travelled across the country and the world to get the best view. It looks set to be the most observed, photographed and documented eclipse in human history. Let's learn more about it from our science correspondent, Palab Ghosh, who's in Oregon in the town of Madras, and this is his report.
They've come to celebrate, they've come to learn, and they've come to be awed by one of nature's greatest spectacles.
We are expecting to see the whole sun is blocking by the moon, so excited.
I think I'm just going to be in awe.
Long queues of slow-moving traffic and campsites sprawled across America's farmland. Problems for Madras's mayor, who's also a woodcarver. He's spent the past 3 years planning for this very day.
The impact on some people has been that they didn't want to have the event this large. In fact, I've had people tell me, why did you invite everybody here? And I keep explaining to them, we didn't invite them and we didn't control this. It's a celestial thing. So it's going to do what it's going to do.
A total eclipse happens when the moon passes in front of the sun, casting a shadow over parts of the earth. They happen around every 18 months, but often over the sea or in remote areas where very few people see them. But this time the sun's shadow will sweep across the whole of the United States. It's been dubbed the Great American Eclipse. Millions of people could see it as it travels nearly 2,500 miles, all the way from Oregon to South Carolina. The shadow of the total eclipse is 70 miles wide and will take 90 minutes to cross the continent. Even American football pitches have been turned over to science today. All across, US astronomers will collect data which they'll send to NASA.
We'd like to learn more about how these eclipses affect the planet and how they affect the atmosphere. If there's any atmospheric disturbance, if it's causing wind changes or temporary climate changes in the area.
Very soon, this tiny town will become the centre of the universe, as those here are among the first to witness one of the great wonders of the solar system.
Well, let's bring in the BBC's Lukman Ahmed, who's live with us from Nashville. Lukman, where have you got to in the process?
Yes, absolutely. Let me just to update you by looking at the sun right now. And it turned out to be a crescent here, and I can see the moon. It's moving toward blocking the sun totally. And in a few minutes here, this light we're going to see is going to turn into a total darkness. And I have behind me here a lot of people here are celebrating and playing music. And they are a part of 1.4 million people gathered here in Nashville, Tennessee, to see this spectacular moment to them.
So it sounds like all normal practice has stopped for the day, Lukman. This is almost like a public holiday.
It's absolutely, it seems like there is excitement. People are very excited to see this phenomena here. It's almost 540 years for this city to see a total eclipse. That is something, it's happening very, very long time ago. And people are trying to grab this moment and trying to catch this moment in like about 20 minutes or so, that it will turn out to a total darkness. And everybody's right now putting his glass and just trying to see momentarily what's happened with the sun. It's something, it's very beautiful the way to see the moon is moving toward closing or blocking the sun totally here, to witness that total darkness in a few minutes.
And look, we should explain the reason you're putting those glasses on is because if you look at this eclipse without them, it can be very, very damaging for your eyes.
Absolutely, everybody here at this moment, for this partial eclipse, everybody should not look into the sun or at the sun unless, you know, wearing these glasses. That's why I am doing this. But if I want to go up there, I'm going to do this one here, and then I can see that spectacular scene there over there on the sky. But everybody here has this glass, and also the people in the center here helping the media. They are distributing these glasses, and it seems like everybody is ready to see that moment without any problem.
Lukman, I'm feeling very jealous of you. Enjoy it as it passes through Nashville. There's Lukman Ahmed live with us from there. Just before we wrap up, though, I do want to go back to that solar eclipse, which millions of people are watching in the US. You'll probably know sky watchers are poised for this rare moment. It's believed that it'll be the most observed, most photographed and best documented event in human history. It's crossing the US from west to east. Let's bring in Neda Tawfik live with us from Kentucky. Neda, how's it going?
Well, Roz, as you can see, it's almost like twilight at this point. The sun is actually a thin crescent, and before the sun was so bright, it was absolutely sweltering. Now it's cooled right down. You have this beautiful, beautiful light, and everyone here you can see behind me is just anticipating the moment of totality in just a few short minutes. That's NASA's live stream. They're here because this is the point of greatest eclipse. This is the best seat in the country to experience totality, and you'll see how quickly the light is fading. If I just look up with my eclipse glasses, it is just a tiny sliver of the sun left. So we are very close to the moment of totality. Everyone here has been overjoyed and excited for this. You can hear them screaming. People of all ages just absolutely in awe at the moment. Oh, and now it's gone. You can barely, there we go. We have now reached the moment of totality. We have now reached the moment of totality. Though you could see the corona. I've taken off my eclipse glasses now, you could see like a ring around the sun's disk, the corona shining bright. The temperature has absolutely dropped. It's amazing. It's really hard to describe, Roz, but you can hear the gasps behind me, everybody saying, wow. Just taking this in, screaming, shouting. My heart is pounding because it is just an awe-inspiring moment. It really reminds you, all of us here together, come from different countries, different ages, all here to witness this moment. And it's absolutely breathtaking. That corona is so bright. It is shining so bright. And even though you can hear people's voices still, you don't hear the crickets anymore. Just scanning the horizon, it's just absolutely beautiful. Absolutely stunning. You can hear people behind, they can hardly believe it. For many, this is their first and my first time to see a total eclipse. And I have to say, even kind of seeing that path, but now to see it completely blocked is unlike anything else. It's amazing.
Neda, we timed that well. Thank you very much indeed. There's Neda and a total eclipse ending this edition of BBC World News Today. Bye-bye.